Well, hello, friends. I'm Leigh Brown. This is Crazy Shit in Real Estate. And today, I want you to think way, way back to a great, great movie from the 80s where you heard a teacher at the front of the classroom say, Bueller, Bueller. And now that I've put that image in your head, you're going to meet Kurt Uhlir. It's not Bueller. It just rhymes with it. Hey, gotcha. So enjoy this conversation, which actually starts off talking about marketing and then goes into what it looks like to find a great realtor. Enjoy it, and I'll see you on the other side.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, no worries. Good. How are you this morning?
Good.
So thank you for coming on the show.
Happy to.
Is that your back porch?
For this house, yes.
Oh, what does that mean?
We live in we live in a suburb of just north of Atlanta, but we own a good bit of property in North Georgia. So
very nice.
So this is a back porch, but that's the view. So.
Oh, look! That looks pretty heavenly.
It's not bad.
So you must be a mountain person, not a beach person, then.
If I have to pick, yes. So I'd actually my ideal would actually not be the top of the mountain, but this is the family land we got. I'd much rather make sure I had 20, 30 acres at the bottom where it was flatter so I could have horses. So
yeah, and access too. You know, when the winter hits, you can get to the lower portion. You can't get to the upper portion necessarily.
Yeah, it doesn't snow too much, but if there's any real snow, if we don't have a 4-wheel drive, we have to park and walk about 3/4 mile up from the rest of the driveway. So
there you go. Get your steps in.
Yeah, that's all.
All right, so tell my listeners a little bit about Kurt, where you're located, how long you've been in and around real estate. Give them a little bit of background.
So I've been in real estate for only about maybe 4.5, maybe almost 5 years at this point. I come from kind of a diverse business background and found my way into marketing and helping scale a bunch of very big companies. But on the side, I've always been helping smaller companies as well. And so, but with that, I've actually helped create 3 of the marketing channels that we all use, whether solo entrepreneurs or big companies. And when I had the opportunity to come in real estate a number of years ago, it was great just to kind of like see how many things hadn't fully filtered through or agents weren't really using, and what was kind of holding people back. So
what was the biggest surprise to you when you landed in the real estate space? Was it the fact that it's so competitive and fragmented, or was it just the people that do things the way they've always done them, or that you have some on the bleeding edge and some that are never going to come near it? What was your general perception?
Yeah, I mean, you have that in legal and accounting and everywhere else about, people that are early adopters and people that are very much lagging. The biggest surprise to me actually coming in was something that I think even so many home buyers and sellers don't realize, is that most agents are 1099 contractors. And so the broker or the team is very important, but that's what holds a lot of agents back. I think a lot of times in their personal branding is because unfortunately, they use the tools that their teams give them, which sometimes are great and sometimes they're not, or they're not asking the right questions about, well, how does this help my personal brand? Like, I know people have been the same team in brokerage for 20 years, and I look at kind of why they haven't necessarily grown, and they just didn't fully adopt some of the tools they were given because, hey, they might change brokerages, and so it kept holding them back. And so that was actually the biggest thing that was kind of, to me, was just like a shock. Was I didn't know that from the outside, either as a business person or even as a repeat home buyer. So
that's so funny, because I was with a national brand for over 20 years, but I very seldom used their tools because I wanted to do my own thing. And I think a lot of realtors are definitely entrepreneurial and renegade when it comes to that. But the problem is consistency. And so you kind of have two sides of the coin. You're either going to focus on it and make it an actual plan, or it winds up piecemeal, which doesn't give you an effect. And then for lack of creativity, or I think more lack of time to invest in it, a lot of agents do just rely on the brokerage tools, which is good for the brokerage and may or may not be helpful to the individual realtor.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great brokerage tools, but I also, I believe in the same thing. It's kind of very similar to outside of work. It's like I believe, my family's able to give a lot more because we're strong financially and we plan for that consistently. Well, anybody, he or she's a better agent if they have a good personal brand and their own good database, whether they stay with that team for 20 years or not. And so, hey, there's nothing wrong with using Keller Williams Command or using anything from Compass or EXP or anything, but ultimately you might change brokerages. And so you should be protecting that asset yourself and using the brokerage tools where it makes sense, especially where you have to with the team. And some of those tools are incredible, but most agents, they haven't intentionally made the choice to use or not use some of those tools. They're not exporting the things that they need. And on the other side, because they haven't been intentional, to your point, sometimes they'll shift too much. What I see so much in real estate is agents that have been burned because they've used basically these snake oil sales tools that have come to them, which looked great on paper, but didn't really work, or they weren't functional, or hey, it was great. Like Constant Contact was great like 20 years ago, but maybe you shouldn't be using that for your newsletter today. I mean, you still can use that well, but most of the people that use that product specifically, they're not sending out newsletters. They're not doing something. And so it's like, that would hold me back from wanting to go choose that as what I would use.
It's just fascinating though, in real estate, the easiest way to sell to any realtor on the planet is, but you only have to get one extra sale to pay for this great tool. And then so many realtors are hungry and they're anxious to do a great job for their clients. So they sign up for everything in search of one more sale, without understanding some tools are going to be helpful and some may or may not be. And you mentioned Constant Contact. It absolutely works for a lot of people, but then you realize at a certain point, you age out of any tool because your emails get blacklisted or spam filtered. And then you have to change to a MailChimp and try something different just to get back in front of your audience. So it's not a reflection of the realtor or their content. Sometimes it's just not reevaluating and holding your tools accountable. And again, it's back to time, because realtors are 1099s. I mean, they just don't have the available bandwidth to focus on this when they're also trying to help people buy and sell homes and do it really professionally. So I'm curious, as a marketer, what do you think is the number one mistake realtors make in their branding and marketing that they could easily correct if they would just do this one thing?
There's two, and I'm not sure which one I would have to say is number one. The first is they focus on new leads at the expense of people they already have relationships with.
Say that
I could go in and
sell people in the back, Kurt. Say that one more time for people in the back. Come on now.
Successful agents do love new leads and new contacts, but they know that the bread and butter comes from relationships that they already have. And so part of your point, like agents will go and try a new tool. They'll go chase something. Somebody will come and sell them, hey, here's a new Facebook ad scheme that would work. And it's like, well, those can all be great, but it's like, I went through one of my partners, Showcase IDX, and I said, hey, let's just pick a dozen of your agents that use the collective platform. They build a big marketing stack on top of Showcase. And so we just looked at 6 to 7 leads across a couple dozen of their clients. And the average age for closed transactions, like 90% of them fell within people that were in the CRM from 17 months to about 28 months. Nobody was in that, hey, I went and signed up your form and then I closed the transaction in 60 to 90 days. Like, there were some outliers there, but these were all people that they were in relationship with in the CRM for a good while at that point. And so that, like, when I go talk to people that do, 80, 120, 150 transactions a year, it's like, no, it's people that those deals almost all came from, like, 90% from people that they've known from like 5 years or more.
It's all about the relationship. And if you're doing marketing correctly, it's enhancing a relationship. It's not just out there putting things on blast all the time. I always get tickled. I can't remember whose analogy it was. It may have been Peter Brewer or Zach Shabbat. Peter's a realtor trainer in Australia. Zach is in the Raleigh, North Carolina market. And one of them at an event one time had said that the way realtors market is basically like walking into a cocktail happy hour, standing on a chair and saying, I'm having an open house, and then getting off the chair and walking out of the room. And then they wonder why nobody knows who they are, comes to their open house and wants to chat with them because they totally didn't read the situation correctly, and then didn't lead into it. and didn't lead out of it. They just blasted and ran, and it was the best visual ever. And would you say that's pretty accurate way that realtors do their marketing before they create a plan?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, so that goes to the second thing that's almost as more important to me than thinking about your current, the people you already have a relationship with is most agents nowadays do not have their own personal website. They've got kurt.kw.com. It's fine when they're working with a team and it's all, but they don't have a website that their clients would actually use. And so there's nothing wrong with subdomain sites. There's nothing wrong with what the brokerage gives you, but like NAR says to your point about like how they market, well, agents are typically they're thinking in the shorter term, and they don't realize like NAR says the average agent changes brokerages every 5 years. And that's been that way for about the last 4 or 5 years. And it was 6 years before then for like 2 or 3 years. Okay, so that means if you're with Compass today, you're with Keller tomorrow, you're with Boutique the next time. And so your personal brand takes time to build up.
Sure.
And maybe Compass has a great website for you, but if your clients are used to going to you at Compass's subdomain site, well, how are they going to find you when you're, when you change brokerages? And so for me, having a website, it ends up being your digital hub that does a couple things. One is it forces the agent to go, and even hopefully they'll ask their clients and friends, would you actually use this as opposed to going to Zillow? Because if not, you're going to have this loss of people where the only thing I can guarantee any agent is if you don't have a website your clients will actually use, you'll have a competitive agent calling them because they're going to go sign up for Redfin or Zillow or Trulia, and a competitive agent will call your client. And so that's a problem. And to your point about like how they put things in blast, well, when you start thinking about this should be my hub, no matter whether I want to try TikTok or I'm on Instagram or I walk into a dinner party. Well, now I start thinking longer term with longer term relationships because it tends to break agents out of that short term, just putting on blast. Like most agents fail at social media because all they post is open house, here's a closing. And, oh, I have a mortgage partner you should probably talk to. And like, that's their entire Instagram feed. They go, I paid somebody like $400 a month to do that for like 3 months and I got no leads. Well, because the 90% of the people that are not actively looking for a home don't care about that content.
Right. So then let me ask you a question then. How often do you go to the website of your realtors? You mentioned you've used a realtor when you bought and sold. Do you go check out their content and see what they're doing, or do you wait for it to filter to you? Are you a push or a pull kind of a guy?
A little of both. So my agent doesn't do a lot of digital marketing. He's very good on the snail mail and sending stuff. Up here, I'm signed up with a couple of realtors, and so on them, it's definitely much more of a pull side. Where how they got me signed up was the low friction way of saying, hey, do you just want to know what people are doing for renovation? You're not looking to buy or sell right now. Can I just sign you up for some listing alerts or open houses so you can see what people are renovating in your area? And so when those emails come out, first of all, the agent didn't have to do anything. Like they just helped me with the criteria. Like here's similar properties to yours, because as the MLS updates and it's a good property search. Well, those emails bring me back to their website. And then there's an agent up here that is really good for putting out content that's of interest, and it's stuff that like as somebody who's growing in the community here, like I want to know about the festival that's going on. I want to know about, hey, when does the farmers market actually open up or not? And Jim's Smoking Q, the best barbecue in like multi-states around here. Of course, I know Jim's Smoking Q, but it's like, well, where's the next place I want to try if it's not a barbecue day? Like that's the type of information that the agent sends out or posts on social, and that's of interest to me.
Okay, so then which one would you call based on what you just described? Who would get the first Kurt phone call? Say that you and your bride want to add an investment property to your portfolio because you love the area so much. Which one would you call?
The agent that is sending me information digital. I mean, I because of our agent in Roswell, who's not so digitally savvy, we're going to call him all day in, day out. He's over the top in value.
Why?
He's over the top in value. So
In what way?
even though he's much more snail mail related, he's also there for text where it's like, hey, we have a finished space that's subbed out for a bathroom in our basement. It's like, there's never any selling. Like when I send him a text saying, hey, is it worth me putting in X number of dollars to do this? Like there's no, hey, trying to get a transaction right there. He sends me text and says, hey, here's enough to have a conversation. If you need a quick decision, but if you want to talk, I'm available. It's like, he's not looking for a transaction tomorrow. he's definitely in this for the relationship as we own that property. And so I'm not sure anybody local in Roswell could get my business from Bobby. Now up here, it's very much though the same thing. While I haven't necessarily done a transaction, it is the agent that's sending that's sending the information that's out and that has me on a drip. Basically, it's a drip sequence that says, "Hey, here's open houses and here's new listings on the market for properties close by." Literally, because so many things are happening just in the market, I'm getting an email from him that says, "Hey, I'm an agent, I'm an agent, I'm an agent," without it being selly like that. And so I have taken probably a dozen of those emails that have come out about properties for sale nearby, and I've forwarded those to my friends that are looking for a place up here. So I made at least a dozen referrals for that.
So it's automated stuff, right? So is he personalizing any of it to you? Is any of it, does it have a personal touch on, or it's just straight drip?
It's the only personalized touch is the mail merge and says Kurt up at the top. So things, nothing unique to it. It's that, just like I said, sends out local content and then ask the questions. If you didn't just sign me up for something, ask the questions. Would I be interested in knowing what's going on in the local market? And then sign me up for MLS alerts using Showcase IDX, which is a nice piece for that. I didn't know that when I actually met him. But that's a nice piece to be able to then get those on. So they, without knowing it, that agent's received a dozen referrals from me because one of the properties that come up and I'm like, oh, this might be of interest to Leigh. I forward the email to you that if you click any of those links, takes you back to that agent's website. And so, but they started that without being selly, because I was clear, I'm not looking to buy or sell. Not that I wouldn't be necessarily open to something, but I'm not an active buyer and seller in any way, and we're not looking to sell this property ever. But that works very well, and that works very well in cities and neighborhoods. I find actually, so within Showcase's clients, like here's a tidbit for any agents that are following you. If you want to sign up your past clients for listing alerts to help that referral basis, there's a sweet spot for them. And it's more recent clients, but you need to have sold them a home between 6 months and 24 months. Not sooner than 6 months because it feels too selly and or people are still getting familiar with their home. After 24 months, often somebody in the house is starting to think about the next property, even though it may be a year or two before they start to discuss it with somebody. But it's like, a lot of times people do stay in the houses for 10 years, 15 years, but there's a lot of times it's like somebody started like, what's the next aspirational home? And so what you don't want is to try to trigger that, oh, you're trying to sell me and I can't even have the discussion with my wife yet if I want to buy or sell. So the sweet spot is at 6 to 24 months to reach out in a very non-saley way. If it's a fast market like Roswell, Georgia, it's really easy to be like, hey, your neighbors are doing upgrades in their bathrooms and their kitchens. Have I just signed you up for some open houses? You can walk in and see what they're doing. Can I sign you up for that? Just curiosity factor.
And of course, the caveat to all of this, to all my listeners and viewers, is that we're recording this in June of 2022, while the market is currently going through some shifting and stabilizing, which means that it's probably a good time to reach out to somebody who's been in their house less than 6 months, because if something has changed in their employment situation or with anything regarding that house, people do make different time frame changes when markets go through shifts. So just remember that. And if you're watching this sometime in the distant future when things have stabilized, then go back to Kurt's rule of thumb of 6 to 24 months. Okay, so Kurt, the whole story of our show, of course, is the things nobody ever expects around real estate. So I'm dying to know what you experienced or you heard about, saw, that made you say, this is not HGTV.
If you are remotely awake, then you know that we are heading into some really tricky economic times. We have home buyers that have put the kibosh on buying because they have interest rate shock. We have sellers who have found out suddenly their houses aren't dipped in 14 karat gold. And as a realtor, you are still trying to keep up with the business you have and trying to answer questions in the meantime, while also managing sky high fuel cost at the pump. Never fear, because my new video course is coming out right now, and it's called How to Dominate During a Recession. Look, I've been a realtor for 22 years. I came through the last recession by the skin of my teeth. Actually, not even the skin of my teeth. My business went up every year during the Great Recession, and it's all because of education and getting in front of the curve so that I could serve as many neighbors as possible and help them weather this storm as well. So this course is 4 modules. There might even be some bonus content for you. And I have priced it so that everybody can get a hold of it and go out there and do great things for the American dream and for home ownership. The price is $199. Click on this link. If you take action, you can be the one who brings great information and great solutions, and also paired with realism and optimism into the marketplace that you serve. I am delighted to bring this out as quickly as possible because, friends, there's no time like the present to make sure our neighbors are stronger and we protect the American dream.
Picking the right realtor matters, and listening to them. It's not just picking them. So both of my parents passed away within, let's see, the last one was about 4 years ago at this point, 3 years ago. And my agent, a friend from high school, I ended up not choosing a lot of people. I chose somebody who I was friends with, but very specific in the type of luxury home I was selling on a lake in North Alabama. And so house was paid off. I didn't need to, we were wanting to sell, but I asked him, so of course the typical question is, what should I sell this house for? And he is like, well, he asked a few questions, and I had another family member in there that was kind of like, let's sell fast. And the agent started really pushing on us. And he's like, well, do you want to sell fast, or do you want stupid money? And I was like, well, tell me about this stupid money. Stupid money sounds interesting. And so he starts talking about it. He's like, well, we have so many people shifting around the country right now. It's one thing if you need to sell, if you're going to go buy another house, which neither me or my family member were in. And he was like, but we're in a place, and this is a house right now where people may move from New York or Chicago or San Francisco, and it's a fraction of the place for them to buy a house in Guntersville, Alabama. And he was like, so he gave me 2 CMAs. He gave me, here's what the market justifies today. And then here's what I think you could do with stupid money if you're willing to wait. And he goes, we can come back and reevaluate it. And so both of us on the family side ended up making well into 6 figures, thanks to actually a very conversational, non-selly agent that ended up talking through and like, I can sell your home for this, but if you're willing to wait, and even there, we had 4 offers come in that people were coming for the bargain basement. They were coming for a price well below what it would have been. It should have been at market. And we ended up making a killing, not just because we ended up choosing the right agent who sells homes just like we have, but because we actually listened to his guidance, and he coached us through then too. Tell you what, when a home's been sitting on the market for 6 months, and this was only like 3 years ago, it's been sitting on the home for 6 months, you start getting a little twitchy. And so the agent's like, we're looking for stupid money here. Like, this is a bad offer. You don't want to take it. And coached us through that. And like I said, ended up being well into 6 figures for both sides of the family as we kind of came out. And I wouldn't have even thought of that. As a seller at that point, I wouldn't have even thought of, and like, I'd have been like, well, what's the market justifying? He's like, the market is different now. To your point, like we're talking in 2022. Even now, there's places, if I don't have to sell, or if I have to sell, a good agent is beyond worth their money.
Well, it's all because he put his own interests behind yours. And I think most realtors do things that way. We just don't often hear about it because the only stories people tell are, frankly, the ugly ones. And I love that he totally personalized it and told you it's something that he would have benefited faster if he'd had a faster sale. And I love how the public likes to fuss about, how much money realtors make. But if you're decent at math, you realize the difference to a seller is thousands and thousands of dollars, but the difference to the agent is usually in the hundreds. And so it's 2 different things altogether. So I love hearing this. And I also love that he was your friend from high school and probably had known your parents. So that's kind of a little emotional tie there, I'm sure. Helped a little bit.
He had, but I ended up not working with multiple other friends that are good agents in the area because they didn't sell this type of house. They sold houses that were 150 to 300,000, not on the lake. Every once in a while, they'd have kind of more of a luxury home. But no, my friend Leigh and his brother, their sweet spot was exactly what we were selling. And so it's like, why would I work with anybody else at that point?
So you mentioned
the friend bit helped, but the friend bit helped only because we were able to have some of the harsher conversations at times. But I mean, I would never choose an agent because they're my friend. I'll entertain and vet them because of it. My agent in Roswell, we talked about, we ended up not choosing probably 14 friends at least that are active agents, and chose somebody else that was in the sweet spot for exactly who my wife and I were and where we were buying.
And it sounds like you're very allergic to selly people, because I think you've said that about 6 different times in the episode. So if you were going to help realtors create a better marketing plan that didn't involve being so selly, as you've mentioned, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and get some guidance and some ideas on that?
They want to reach out to me specifically, they can come to kurtuhlir.com, my website. But if they're looking for anything around a website marketing, Showcase IDX is the only home search that's chosen over Zillow anywhere in the country. And so we don't build websites, but I can give you a list of people that build awesome ones or help you in any area. So.
And if you're a realtor who does not know what he's talking about with IDX, you definitely need to reach out. If you are in the consumer public, then you should probably tell your favorite realtor to listen to this episode so they can create a better website for you, so you don't have to go off and go hunt for different places to look. Kurt, thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us not only a good insight into picking a great realtor, but also giving us some feedback on marketing and thinking about putting business plans together for the future. I appreciate all your information and input.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, you know what to do. Say something nice about Kurt in the comments, or you can actually just comment on how many times he said Sally, because I think that should be your new drinking game. And make sure that you tune back in. I'll see you next time. So if you found value in this episode, please like and subscribe to this channel, turn on the bell, and catch another amazing episode by clicking above. Crazy Shit in Real Estate is also available in all of your normal podcast apps. So if that's where you like to hang out, go find me, click subscribe, and most importantly, leave me a review that says you think I'm awesome, my guests are awesome, or this content is just exactly what you were looking for. And then, by the way, if there's something you need, you want to learn about something, you can comment below anytime. You can also send me a direct message if you need to remain anonymous. No judgment. But anyway, I'll only judge if you forget to subscribe and click. I'll see you next time.